Did you know you can master Unreal Engine 5 in no time? In just 3 hours, I'll take you from a complete beginner to an expert level. In this series, we'll start with the basics, such as installation and navigation, and progressively move to more advanced topics. By the end, you'll be able to create and optimize stunning scenes. Here's what you'll learn: setting up and navigating Unreal Engine 5, blocking out scenes, utilizing levels and megascan libraries, exploring nanite technology, scene optimization techniques, using pattern tools, creating landscapes and water features, 3D kit bashing, scattering props and color adjustments, foliage tools and decals, managing layers and lighting, sequencing and exporting your final movie. Let's get started and bring your ideas to life. This video is part of our Unreal Engine full course. Subscribe and check the playlist for more tutorials. Thank you for joining me in this lesson. Let's discuss the Epic game ecosystem, how to install Unreal Engine, and how to navigate its interface. If you are a complete beginner, this will be very exciting. Let's begin by heading to the Unreal Engine website and downloading the engine. This website is an excellent resource for learning about the engine's features and use in various industries. You can find detailed documentation about any tools available within the Unreal Engine. However, for now, we will focus on simply installing the engine. Feel free to explore the website later on at your own pace. To start installing Unreal Engine, go to the download section of the website and download the Epic Games Launcher. This launcher is your gateway to the Epic Games ecosystem, providing access to all Epic Games products, including Unreal Engine. Once you have downloaded, installed, and launched the Epic Launcher, you must create an account to sign in. Once logged in, navigate to the Unreal Engine section and click the Library tab. This is where you can download and install Unreal Engine. Click the plus icon next to the engine version to install the engine. A new one will pop up. From there, you can choose the version of Unreal Engine that you want to install. Once the installation is complete, you can launch Unreal Engine by clicking on the Launch button in the top right corner of the Epic Launcher. You can also set the default version of Unreal Engine to launch automatically. I have installed the latest Unreal Engine 5.4 version, so I don't need to install it again. However, if there's a new update available, I can easily update it through the Epic Launcher. While waiting for the download, let's explore the Epic Games Launcher's vast features. If you scroll down in the first section, you'll find My Project, showcasing all your ongoing projects. Anything saved on your computer will be displayed here for easy access. If you scroll down even more, you will find the Vault. The Vault is your storage of tools and resources. It contains all the items you've bought or received from the marketplace for free. Once added, these items become readily available for use in your projects. You can add any item directly from your vault to a project. News tab. Let's explore other tabs at the top, such as the News tab. Here, you can stay informed with weekly updates, feature releases, and community showcases for Unreal Engine. You can get inspired and stay current with the latest developments and optimization insights. Samples tab. The Sample section in the launcher is a remarkable feature that showcases the engine's capabilities. It's beneficial for learning as you can download sample projects and examine them to understand how specific effects or features were achieved. In addition, you can use all of the materials and assets from the sample section for your projects. Remember that some files can be large, so ensure you have enough space on your computer and a good internet connection before downloading them. Marketplace. The Marketplace is the most crucial feature of the Epic Games Launcher. It's a fantastic tool for buying or selling your creations, including 3D assets, materials, and plugins. You can easily find what you need by browsing the numerous options, or searching by category or keywords. With plenty of assets and plugins to select from, the Marketplace is a powerful tool to have at your disposal. Free for the month. Many plugins and assets available in the Marketplace are permanently free. However, one section that I find interesting is the Free for the Month section. Every month, this section offers some high-quality assets that are usually paid for but are offered for free for a limited time. I always check out this section and add the free assets to my collection because you never know when you might need them later. Let's discuss how to choose an asset to buy. First, you must check if the asset is your supported engine version. Ensure that the asset you want to buy or add to your project is compatible with your engine version. However, there may be exceptions. For example, it should still work fine if you're using a 5.4 engine version and the asset is supported until 5.3. On the other hand, it's almost impossible to add a higher version asset to a project with a lower engine version. After purchasing something from the marketplace, it will be added to your Vault section, where you can access it later. Let's examine different kinds of assets that you have access to. I can categorize everything you buy from the marketplace into 3 categories. Firstly, you can easily buy assets like materials, 3D environment objects, other tools, and so on, and add them to your project. For example, here is a blueprint that helps take pictures. Secondly, you can install a plugin that performs a specific task on the engine, like this plugin that makes lighting strikes. Lastly, you might have an entire project that you need to create. For example, if you want to use any of these pieces of furniture in one of your projects, you need to create a project from this asset, go to that project, and then migrate that file to your project. Let's see how we can add something to a project. So you simply check the supported engine version and click Add to the project. It will show all the projects with the same engine version, so if you want to add it to another project with another engine version, just click on Show All Projects, and then you will see all your projects on your computer. If this sounds complicated or overwhelming, please don't worry. I just gave you some basic information about different types of assets. As we go through tutorials and training, you will gradually learn about various kinds of assets and how to manage them. The update I've made is finished, and I can now launch the engine from the top right corner button. Also, you can set the engine version you want to be the default, so that if you have multiple engine versions installed on your computer, that version launches every time you hit launch. You will also notice that there is a shortcut on my desktop. So, whenever I want to run Unreal Engine, I don't have to launch it from the Epic Games launcher. I can directly run it from my desktop, and it will open the version of the Unreal Engine that I set up in the Epic Games launcher. We are going to the Unreal Project browser right out of the bat. In the Unreal Project browser, you will see different tabs. The Recent Project tabs show all of the projects you are currently working on in Unreal Engine, and you can open the project you want directly from here. Also, if you want to see where a specific project is located on your computer, you can right-click and show it in Explorer. This will take you to the folder where the project is located. But let's talk about other tabs in the browser. We have Games, Film, Architecture, Automotive, and Simulation tabs. In each tab, you will see a template for a specific purpose. For example, if you want to make a third-person game, you will choose this template. Essentially, each template is a copy of the Unreal Engine with some of the settings already enabled and some assets added to the project. This gives you a jump start on the project. You don't have to activate all the settings related to that specific project manually. For example, if I want to make a third-person game, this template already has some assets and settings enabled for me. You can describe this template's operations and enabled settings here. You can also enable some other settings for yourself here. For example, you can choose between using Blueprint or C++ for your programming language. Blueprint is a programming language in Unreal Engine that doesn't require you to write code. Instead of writing code in a program like C++, you create your code using visual graphs. We can also enable some other settings here. For now, I will go to the Film, Video, and Live Events tab and choose a blank template to create an environment for cinematic perspectives. However, the process is the same if you want to make an environment for a game. Usually, it's a really good start if you start from blank, because later on, you can activate the settings that you want inside the project. Also, every project is a copy of the engine, so using a blank template for the project will reduce the size since we don't add unnecessary assets and settings to the project. In this section, we have 2 options available: Starter Content and Ray Tracing. The starter content is a valuable asset for beginners. It includes a collection of ready-to-use objects, materials, and some example environments that can help you start building scenes quickly. It's particularly useful if you're new to Unreal Engine and need assets to experiment with as you learn. On the other hand, ray tracing is an advanced lighting technology that simulates the real behavior of light in environments, providing more realistic shadows, reflections, and refractions. An RTX graphics card is highly recommended to effectively utilize ray tracing. These NVIDIA cards are specially designed with dedicated ray tracing cores that handle the demands of real-time, realistic lighting simulations, significantly enhancing your visual experience. While you can enable ray tracing on older GPUs, the performance may suffer and the results might not meet high-quality standards due to slower rendering and potential limitations in visual fidelity. For the purposes of this training, I will leave both options unchecked to start with a basic setup. This way, I can guide you step by step through enabling and utilizing these features effectively within Unreal Engine later in the course. For now, simply choose a name and location for your project and then proceed to create your project in UE5. This initial setup will help you understand the core functionalities before diving into more complex features. I'm going to call this project Chapter 1, and let's create it. Usually, when we start a new project or open a project for the first time on your computer, it takes a bit more time to start because the engine loads all of the assets and shaders that enable real-time rendering. So, don't worry if it seems like it's taking some time. Interface. So, let us start with the interface. We are inside of the Unreal Engine, and let's talk about the interface. At first glance, it seems very intimidating. There are so many buttons, options, and windows in this interface. Do we need to know everything about it? Absolutely not. We need just to know the options that we need. Even most professionals don't know all of the options and windows in this interface. They just know what they have to know. Let's just focus on the fundamentals. As you become more advanced, you will learn more about all of these windows and options located here. As you can see in this corner, we are in the Chapter 1 project we made. Also, here we see we are on a startup level called Main. I will discuss levels in detail later, but essentially, a level is a container that holds everything we put inside a scene, from objects to lighting, so it's going to hold our scene. Like any other software, a menu bar at the top is allocated to managing the software. Here, we see a file that controls managing the levels and the project we are working on, from saving to exporting and all other options. It's always good to know the shortcut for each of these items. For example, as we are going to build our scene inside Unreal Engine, we have to save our modifications within this level. So, Ctrl+S will save all of our modifications at our level. Throughout this training, we will save our changes again and again by holding the Ctrl and S buttons on the keyboard. Ctrl+Shift+S is going to save any changes that we made anywhere in the project, which is very handy as well. Also, under Edit, you will find all the usual editing options, including copy, paste, duplicate, and delete. The shortcuts for most of them are similar to those in other software, like Ctrl+C for copy, Ctrl+V for paste, and Ctrl+D for duplicate. So it's pretty similar to other software you are familiar with. Another tab here is Windows. If you are missing anything inside of the interface or want to access a missing window, you can activate or deactivate it here. For example, here I have my levels window. If I close it and come back here, I can bring it back from the window tab. We will use and discuss the rest of the tabs on the bar as we get more advanced. Another important window that we have to discuss here is the content drawer. As you can see, if you click on the left bottom part, you can access the content drawer. Also, because this is very useful and we will use it a lot, we can bring it back with Ctrl spacebar. What is the content drawer? The content drawer is going to be like our Explorer in Windows. It's going to show us all the content that we have inside the engine. By content, I mean all of the materials to the objects. Everything that we are bringing inside the Unreal Engine will be shown in our content drawer. Right now, we have two folders here, Content and Engine. The Content folder is for all of the 3D models and everything we will bring into the project. We are going to make our project in the Content folder. Right now, you see two files in my Content folder, which are related to what's called main level. Essentially, the main level that we are seeing in the viewport right now is an asset by itself inside my Content folder. Engine content is all of the behind-the-scenes content. The Engine folder contains all the default shapes, materials, and lighting related to how the engine runs. Since the content drawer is very useful and important, we can dock it to the layout. This means we will always have it shown here if we choose to. Also, we can move it and put it in another area of the screen, or even dock it to the sidebar and bring it from the side if we want to have it by our side. Let's just close it for now, and we can always bring it back from here. But let's go to the right side of the screen where we have multiple windows. The most important one here is the outliner. What is the outliner? Every actor that we put inside of the level is going to be shown here. What do I mean by actor? Everything inside the Unreal Engine is an actor, for example. From the object we put here to the light we put here. All of them are actors that we put inside a level. From now on, when I say actor, I mean any element that I'm moving around or bringing inside the level. The outliner is a place where we can control what is inside our level. I can control and select the items here and make them visible and invisible. I can also organize them. For example, I will select all of my lighting stuff items. Right-click, go to Move To, and create a new folder to organize them. Now I can turn on and off all of my lighting items. Also, if I hit F2, I can rename this folder. It is very important to keep your outliner clean and organized, because as this project progresses, you will get many items and actors inside of a level, and it will be very difficult to find them if you don't have a good organization here. So try to use a good organization system so you can be able to find your items here easily. Also, I can select some of the items and delete them if I don't need them. Another important tab here is Detail. If I select anything from the viewport or something from the outliner, I can get all of the properties related to that actor inside of the Detail section. For example, in the Transform section, I get the location, rotation, and scale information. Since I've picked the floor here, and it is a 3D mesh, the static mesh and material sections of its details will show me a mesh and a material applied to that mesh. As I said, everything inside a level is located somewhere in the content drawer. So, if I want to see where this floor is located inside my content drawer, there is an option here to browse and take me to where this floor is located inside the content browser. If I click this, you see that the floor is inside the folder inside the engine content in my content drawer. If you are new to 3D modeling and mesh and material seem strange, a mesh is essentially the skeleton or framework of a 3D object made up of vertices, edges, and faces that define its shape. Think of it like a wireframe model of something from the real world, such as a chair or a car. Now, to make this mesh look realistic, it needs a material. Materials are like the skin that wraps around the mesh. They can be shiny, matte, rough, or smooth, and give the object color and texture. Speaking of textures, these are detailed images or patterns that are applied to the material to give it more detail. For example, a texture might make a flat red material look like real brick, or bumpy and irregular like an orange peel. Therefore, the relationship between a mesh, material, and textures is essential in building realistic 3D models. The mesh provides the form, materials give the mesh color and characteristics, and textures add the finer details. But let's go to other windows here. Levels that right now are going to control our levels and our sub-levels that I'm going to talk about in the next lesson, and world setting, which is going to give us a lot of control over the settings of the current level that we are working on. So, let's return here on the main level I showed you inside the content browser. If I want to find where it's located inside the content browser, I can simply hit this, and it will show me where it's located inside the content browser. As you can see, there is an asterisk on top of the level inside. Every time you see an asterisk inside Unreal Engine on top of something in the content browser, it means that you made some modification to that and you have to save it. You can hit Ctrl+S, which will save every item that you made changes to and are currently selected in the browser, or in this case, you can right-click and save it from here. If you make changes to a level, you can save it from here as well. Right now, you see that we are in selection mode. We also have some other modes, and there are some shortcuts for them. If you go to landscape mode, foliage mode, or modeling mode, it will give you some other options related to that specific mode. For example, in modeling mode, you get many options for 3D modeling an object inside of the Unreal Engine, or in landscape mode, you will get some options around how to make a landscape for your scene or inside of your level. let's go to selection mode. When building our scene, we are usually in selection mode. When we need other tools, we switch to different modes. Another useful button here is Quickly Add to Project, which provides a quick way to add actors to the scene. For example, if I need a simple cube, I come here to the shapes and I drag a cube into the scene. Also, I can type the actor that I'm looking for here and simply drag and drop it into the scene. You will become familiar with many other options as we progress through this training. Essentially, many items located inside Unreal Engine are accessible through other methods as well. But Quickly Add to Project is a way for us to quickly find the actor we are looking for and add it to the level. Before we jump to the main window in the middle, our viewport, let's also talk about some organizational techniques. Here, you can dock all of these to the sidebar and have them like this. Or let's bring them back. Also, you can, for example, stack one of them beneath another, or detach them completely and place them wherever you want. If something has disappeared, as I said in the Window tab, you can find it. For example, right now, I want to bring back my Levels and Details windows. Also, in the Windows panel, you can load or save a preferred layout. For example, some people are used to using the classic version of the interface, so it will be easier for them to work with Unreal Engine 4 as it used to be. Everything is integrated here. Another window, Place Actor, provides another way of accessing actors. However, since we have this option now, I don't necessarily use it. Let's go to the default layout. In the default layout, you see you have the outliner and details, which will be the two main windows we will use throughout this training. But right now, I want to put them side by side, and I'm going to bring back levels and the world setting that we had before and put them in the order we started with. Okay, let's jump to the main window, the biggest window here, our viewport. First of all, you see some weird shapes here in the middle. For example, this shape that if I go to my outliner, you see is my light source. Some actors, such as light sources, are initially invisible. Because light is initially invisible, Unreal Engine will give us a graphic representation of it so we can see where it is located inside the level and select it. If you press the G key while inside the viewport, it will toggle the game mode, which makes all of the helper graphics invisible. It will show a quick view of your final level without all those helpers. For example, you won't see the items related to lighting or even the grid on the ground when you hit G. Throughout this training, if you see these items appear and disappear, I'm hitting the G key as needed. Right now, I see that my scene is kind of empty. I want to make it fuller for the rest of this training. If I go to my content drawer, I see that I don't have anything in there to bring to the scene, so I want to add some starter content so I have something to work with. When the folder is selected, I can add a lot of actors to my folder from here. But I want to go to Add Features and Content Pack to the project. If I hit this, it's going to take me to Add Content to the project window. As you can see here, we have all the assets we could enable in the templates at the beginning of the project. We can bring them here to the project right now. At the beginning of the project, I said, okay, we don't want to bring this to the project because I want a blank project, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to activate them inside of the project. This is the place where you can add them. For example, I can bring third-person features again here that include all of the items you need to make a third-person game. Here in the content folder, I will choose the starter content. Starter content is a collection of assets in an Unreal project from static mesh props such as tables, chairs, doors, lamps, and materials like brick, wood, etc. It will give us a head start so we have something for the project. When I add this to the project, it will be added to my content folder. Inside my content folder, I have another folder, which contains numerous other items, including architectural elements and materials. I will now add a material to my floor by scrolling down, selecting it, and then dragging and dropping it onto the floor. Next, I'll add some walls with windows and doors from the architecture section. I click and drag these items into the scene, releasing them to place them. I'll also add a table from the prop section. Now, our scene is no longer empty, allowing us to discuss other items better. Look at the outliner. We've brought all these items to my level, and now they're visible there. I can select all these items, right-click, choose Move To, and then organize them into a folder labeled Meshes. Another key feature is the ability to change the direction of light. By clicking anywhere inside my viewport and holding the Ctrl and L keys while moving the mouse, I can adjust the lighting direction, which is very handy. Now, let's explore what's going on inside the viewport. There are numerous options at the top left corner, but one of the most important is the Show Frames Per Second (FPS) setting in the viewport options. Enabling this shows how quickly Unreal Engine updates the scene in the top right corner. For context, movies typically shoot at 24 or 30 FPS, while some documentaries may exceed 60 FPS. Higher frame rates are common in games. Right now, it shows 120 FPS, which is reasonable given the simplicity of our current scene. Monitoring FPS is crucial as it helps determine if adding certain assets or effects might negatively impact performance, so you know in what step you made a mistake. Switching views is also useful. From the perspective view, you can switch to an orthographic view like top, bottom, or left views. One of the most useful features in orthographic views is the ability to use drag selection. This means that by clicking and dragging the mouse, a window will open and everything within that window or crossing it will be selected. This tool is not available in the perspective view and can greatly aid in the design process. I'm here to mention another important option. If you hold the middle mouse button and drag, you can measure your items in these orthographic views. Unreal Engine uses centimeters as the standard unit of measurement, so this is 410 centimeters. If you need to measure something, just hold your middle mouse button and drag to get the measurements. Let's switch to the perspective view. Remembering some of these shortcuts is also useful. If you look at view modes here, you see that we are currently in lit mode, which means that everything will be shown as it would appear in the final frame. There are other options like unlit that show just the albedo color of your items, which will be handy later in the process. You can also see our scene in wireframe mode, which is very useful for all of the meshes that make our scene. There are many other viewing modes that will be used in different cases. When you're in your orthographic views, you can switch to any other mode and change it from wireframe mode to any other viewing mode. All of these options are available in other views as well. Let's just go back to the perspective view mode. Let's explore items in the show icon here. You can manage some common features in the show menu, such as hiding certain items. This means that when you add a lot of actors to the level, sometimes you might want to hide some of them or even not see some of the features. For example, right now you see a grid on the ground. You can deactivate this grid here. Maybe there's a case where you don't want to see all of your meshes in the level, so you can come here and deactivate them from here so you no longer see any of your meshes. But let's bring them back, for now, both the grid and the static mesh. Let's go all the way here. Right now we have one viewport, but here you can access multiple viewports and all of these options in other viewports as well. You can also maximize any of these viewports as you work with them and make the same changes to those viewports. If I hold the right mouse button inside the viewport and move my mouse around, I can see what's happening within the scene. I can pan around the scene by holding the middle mouse button and moving the mouse. Scrolling in and out allows you to zoom in and out. Additionally, if I hold Alt with the right mouse button and move my mouse, I can zoom in and out. Holding Alt and the left mouse button lets me orbit around my scene. For those who are gamers, using the W, A, S, and D keys while holding the right mouse button allows you to navigate the scene as if you were in a game environment. You can adjust the camera speed here. Increasing it will slow the movement and decreasing it will speed it up. If I select an object and press the F key, it will center that object in the viewport, allowing me to rotate around it. Another handy feature is setting bookmarks. If I find a view I like, I can bookmark it with Ctrl and a number key, like Ctrl+1. If I move elsewhere in the scene and want to return, pressing 1 will take me back to that bookmark. I can set multiple bookmarks this way, for instance, Ctrl+2 for a second view, and toggle between them using the 1 and 2 keys. If you ever feel disoriented in the scene, select an object and press F. This will focus the view on that object, which is a very useful technique. To deselect, simply click an empty space in the outliner. Now, let's discuss the options for select, move, rotate, and scale, which I can toggle between using the Q, W, E, and R keys. The selection mode is self-explanatory. You can use Ctrl to select items individually or in groups, and deselect with Ctrl+Shift. Moving on to move mode, which you can enter by pressing W or clicking here. When you select an item in move mode, a pivot will appear, showing the directions in which the object can move. You can move the object along the pivot's axis or between two axes simultaneously. For instance, I can move an object along the Y and Z axes. If I select the middle of the pivot, where three axes are connected, I can freely move the object in any direction based on the camera's view. However, you'll notice some snapping happening. We have a grid on the ground, and the pivot snaps to this grid as I move it around. You can toggle grid snapping on or off. Changing the grid size affects the snapping intensity. For example, making the grid larger results in larger snapping increments. Let's set it back to 10. If I disable snapping, the movement around the axis becomes much smoother and freer. Let's go to rotation. You can enter this mode by clicking on the rotation tool or pressing E on your keyboard. In this mode, you can rotate your object around its axis. However, you'll notice there's a snapping effect in action. If you prefer, you can adjust or disable the snapping under the rotation settings. It is currently set to snap every 10 degrees. Let's disable it for now. One interesting feature to mention: if you want to move your objects more freely, go to Edit and Preferences, and in the window that opens, type Arc Ball. Enable this setting, and you can rotate your objects without considering the axes by clicking and dragging them in the middle of the pivot. As you change the rotation, you'll notice the rotation parameters updating in real time under the Details panel. If you ever need to reset the rotation to its original state, click the Reset button next to the rotation parameter. This reset will return the object to its original orientation. Similarly, you can use the Location Reset option to reset an object's location to the center of the scene. Now, let's discuss scaling. You can enter scale mode by clicking on the Scale tool or pressing R. Here, you can scale your object along any axis. If you grab the middle of the scale pivot, you can scale the object uniformly. To demonstrate, I'll reset the scale so that any adjustments from now will start from the default scaling. Notice the lock button next to the scaling options. If engaged, it will maintain uniform scaling automatically. However, like rotation and movement, scaling also has a snapping option set to 25% increments by default. You can disable this if you need finer control over the scaling process. Now that we know all about move, rotate, and scale, let's make some walls. As I move around my scene to position these walls, please note that if you want to stack objects precisely on each other, pressing the End key will align them perfectly. To duplicate an object, simply press the Ctrl+D key. Initially, it might appear that nothing happened, because the duplicate is precisely over the original. If you move the new object, you'll see the duplication. Also, if you hold Alt while moving an object with the pivot, Unreal Engine will automatically create and place a duplicate of that object. Suppose you want multiple objects to share the same rotation or other properties. You can copy the properties from one object and paste them onto another using the Details panel. This ensures consistency across similar objects in your scene. For instance, if you want two cubes to have identical properties, copy all relevant attributes from one and paste them into the other. You can select multiple items within one category, such as scale, and when multiple items are selected, you might see different values for each. However, you can type a number to uniformly control all of them on that specific parameter. Let me move this a bit to the side. Another option I haven't yet discussed is snapping to the surface. If I want to add a chair to the scene, I go to the prop section, select a chair, and place it using its pivot point. But if I activate surface snapping and then place it, it will align with the surface I'm dragging it to. Remember to disable this feature when you're done, as it can interfere with using the pivot in other situations. Let's talk about the world and local setting. Currently, you see that I can move objects along the global axis. But if I change the setting to local, the object will move along its own axis. This also applies to rotation. You can see how the behavior changes when I adjust this setting. Let's move this object over here. Now, I believe we've covered all the essential tools. Remember, when you add something to the outliner, always move it to the specific folder you need to keep it organized. I hope you're enjoying this lesson. We've covered foundational topics like the Epic Games ecosystem, installing Unreal Engine, and using its features. Don't forget to explore the Epic Games website and documentation. Next, we'll look at the concept of levels in Unreal Engine.